Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. A couple of small announcements before we go any further. Firstly, I'm deliberately talking a little bit slower than normal, just to test exactly how much of a punk our internet connection is this week. We have finally had someone come out and fix the things with the stuff and pour the magic blue pixie dust back in, and it's looking good. So, with that in mind, first order of business. Hi, welcome everyone. I'm aware that there are folks here from various parts of the world. Some of you are here from the Magnus Archives, some of you are here because of Pseudopod, some of you are here because you grew up on the Isle of Man with me and, like me, escaped. And some of you have come in from York or from further afield. Regardless of where you come from, regardless of how you have heard of us, welcome. Here's how things normally work. Normally what we do is I open with an opening monologue, which is kind of the equivalent of the, I want to say Rankin Bass music in the cinemas, you know, the thing that went da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then there were the trailers and the advert with the guy drinking Bacardi and running down a jetty. Just me? Cool. Okay, basically it's the excuse to have people just settle in and get comfortable, and then we push on and do a little bit of a Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking and the shenanigans and the whole thing, and it's great. This week is going to be a little different, because this week we have our first ever special guest. Yay! And because of how we normally do things, our special guest is going to do the opening monologue. Folks, it gives me tremendous, vast pleasure to introduce Mr. Nate Crowley. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm very well indeed. I'm past my bedtime on a stream.
Hooray!
Can I say your shirt is magnificent?
Thank you.
I really coveted it for myself.
Thank you very much. Later on, I will be solving crimes in Hawaii.
He does. He does sing the Hawaii 5-0 theme
I do.
Regularly.
I do. But thank you very much. How are you, Nate? You doing all right?
Yes, I'm very relaxed today, actually. I don't have any deadlines for a few days. I've just been moving some plants around my fish tanks, getting some lovely new Nano Anubias planted onto some wood. It's a nice little epiphytic plant, and everything's just looking great in here. So yeah, I'm very well. Oh, and my book's out tomorrow, so I'm delighted.
Which we'll be getting to in just a moment. So, you have an opening monologue for us.
Yes, and I thought I'd read something of yours.
Fantastic, thank you.
Shake things up. So, of course, lost my place in the document, so I'm not quite as smooth as you, but I have the document open. Here we are. So this piece is by a fellow called Alistair Stewart, and it's on a subject dear to my heart, Jason Statham, or more specifically, The Expendables. And this is Alistair Stewart's Expendables Fever Dream. Earlier this month, I rewatched the flexiest movie trilogy to ever skip leg day. The Expendables stars Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, Terry Crews, Dolph Lundgren, Jet Li, and Randy Couture as exciting drawings of themselves made by teenage boys. They're an elite mercenary unit dropped into impossible jobs to get those jobs done, knowing full well that not all of them may make it out. Spoiler, like 1.5 team members die in the entire trilogy. Anyway, Stallone plays Barney, team leader and pilot. Statham plays Late Christmas, the Coach Z to his strong bad.
That's two! We're going to keep track of how many times you corpse, Nate.
And also clearly the love of his life. Dolph Lundgren plays Gunnar Hansen, a substance-abusing giant who is briefly evil, is sort of shot and killed, and gets better. Terry Crews plays Hail Caesar, the team's heavy weapons specialist, Jet Li plays Yin Yang, holds the team's infiltration and close combat specialist. Randy Couture plays Toll Road, now the team's Randy Couture. Eric Roberts, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Mel Gibson play basically the same villain every time, patiently waiting for Barney to very, very kill them, and then run away from something as it explodes. Also, there are occasionally women. Only two of which make it clear the only thing stopping them from jumping Barney is the worry he'd sprained something, and one of whom is Charisma Carpenter, visibly astonished at being given even less to do than she had in her last season on Angel. This franchise, they are the living definition of here for a good time, not a long time. Stitched across the three, there's a decent amount of an interesting action franchise, briefly surfacing, gasping for air, and screaming for help before someone decides that maybe there should be another montage. They've been successful enough to spawn a trapped in development hell all-women spin-off called The Expendables, because of course it is. A fourth movie, which will be Terry Crews-less, because the producer doesn't believe being groped is a big deal. And The Expendables, A Christmas Story, in which I choose to believe Lee Christmas will return to Albert Square to help out his old mum and deliver the single most terrifying Christmas dinner in human history.
The chat is loving you corpsing to your own jokes here. This is hilarious.
But The Expendables are in trouble. Big, franchise-ending trouble. The aforementioned Avi Lerner issue means Terry Crews, one of the two emergency charisma life jackets in the cast, is not returning. The Expendables began as an all-female kick-ass spec ops team, and eventually turned into, but when does Rebel Wilson do the bikini show, which is hilarious because she's large and all large people are funny, sort of nonsense. Here are the receipts. There is a link. The terrible, terrible receipts. Only A Christmas Story looks set to go ahead and is penciled in to shoot this year, which, it being 2020, means next year. Probably. Maybe. So have the Expendables flown their last aging plane into their last uranium mine? Has Arnie delivered his last painful cameo? Will Nicolas Cage be denied the chance to play Hunter Grimlinson? His rumoured character? The answer to all these questions is no, because I am here to save the day. So here's what you do. You have the standard setup for an Expendables movie. Han Solo's angry at them. They need to infiltrate a tiny country that's somehow both Cuba and Russia simultaneously. There's banter and the murder of countless extras. They're exfiltrating as fast as their manly chests will carry them. Barney and Lee bickering like the old married couple. They aren't quite. Anyway, they get to the chopper and it blows up. Out of nowhere, a masked team of operators pin them down. They're fast, they're mean, they're brutal, they're oddly familiar. Pinned down, outgunned, the Expendables are in trouble until the gunfire stops and a voice echoes across the battlefield. Step forward, Barney. He's met by his counterpart. Same height, same build. They stare each other down as the voice begins talking about what it feels like to die and be reborn. I want that for you, Barney. I want that for all of you. The masked soldier in front of Barney takes his mask off. Barney reacts in horror. Before he can move, he's shot in the chest, catapulted backwards by the velocity of the round. We see him scream, gasp for breath, and die. Roll opening credits. 6 months later, the newbies from Expendables 3 lead a raid to rescue the team. They've got Wesley Snipes as Doc with them. Ronda Rousey's acting has really improved. It's a good time. We even learn that Barney, while clinically dead, was healed by their mysterious captors, but he still won't talk about what he saw. Anyway, there's lots of opportunity for hilarious japery, involving Hale and Lee having hair, and the grey in everyone's beards, and back into linear time, entropy, and so on. Anyway, on the way out, the rookies explain the team have been active the whole time. Their plane, their rep, everything has been taken by the squad that brought them down. The Expendables now are a masked force of evil, working for the highest bidder, doing the exact opposite of the work they're best known for. Tools in jail, and as fate turning state's evidence to distract Mr. Church and Mr. Drummer from their manhunt, the Expendables, it seems, are officially expendable. Just as this is explained, they're attacked. The newbies stay behind to buy the original team some time, and we see them in the worst spot as we leave. Barney looks super sad. In a freighter, perhaps the one we see them liberate way back in the first movie, continuity. The team regroup and demand answers. Barney has refused to talk about the men in the masks, but now they have nothing but time. Barney tells them the awful truth. The masked man is Joseph Ross, his brother. The other foundable of the foundable of Airily Lunchables, left for dead on their first mission. Barney Ross, the man who leaves no man behind, left him behind. The team are stunned. Lee is murderously angry, but aware this is a family thing, through stephanically gritted teeth, he asks what they're going to do. What are we going to do? Barney stares into the middle distance for a long, long time, and then he says, get me a phone. To The Hague, continuity, where Angela Bassett, playing Mallory Ross, ace attorney, is conducting a war crimes tribunal. The phone rings, the one with a skull on the case, the phone that hasn't rung in years. She's rattled, but she's a pro. Finishes the hearing, takes the call. What do you need, Barnabas? Help! She closes her eyes, complicated emotions across her face. In short order, we see that Barney founded the Expendables with his brother Joseph, best friend Conrad Stonebanks, and his then wife, Mallory Ross. Mallory, a West Point grad, unable to rise past captain due to endemic sexism, shifted to JAG and left Barney, disgusted at the dark road he was heading down. But she did her fair share of field operations and still has the contacts. The plan is simple. Assemble a team, rearm the original Expendables, clear their names, kill a bunch of extras, obviously. Mallory assembles an elite force, including Rihanna as Rihanna. Okay, we can give her a character. Cora Parker, cyber warfare specialist who's got a cousin in New York who knows the Ocean family. Jessica Henwick as Rebecca Ham, deep brain scout and survival expert. Indie wrestler Viper as Moira Megaton Kinney, close quarters combat specialist and metalhead. Cleopatra Coleman as Ox, softly spoken transport specialist. The Ox stands for nitrous oxide. Barney's team are picked up and the two groups bond. Mallory's clearly impressed by how well Barney works with younger people after the events of the last movie, continuity, and warms to her ex's plight. She explains that she's been building intel on the imposters, never believed they were really Barney and co, and has worked out where they're next going to hit. The Suisun Bay Reserve Fleet. That's right, they're going after an Eclipse vault hidden on one of the ships, a treasure trove of, well, treasure. The CIA used to fund their awful work. Barney and Mallory lead their teams into battle and clash with the Expendevils. The series has a character called Tollwald. Let me have this. They discover the awful truth.
Content
The
warning.
new Expendables are played by the team's stunt doubles. I am become Meta, destroyer of worlds. The evil team get the dead drop, and while it's close this time, the CIA show up and attack the wrong team. Which is better than funding a fascist regime, but not by much. There's a montage of sad country rock as our characters lick their wounds. Expendable, no. Outclassed, definitely. Then Cora comes through. The dead drop contained details of a holdout nuke in London, one constructed by the US Embassy in the events of World War III. It was widely believed this happened in Washington during the Cold War. Seriously. Now scheduled for demolition. If Joseph gets his hand on it, he can blow the city into atoms and blame it on the US, killing millions and shattering the Western world forever. They're outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, outplanned. How that before? But they're the Expendables. They saddle up. One last time. Again. There's an enormous three-way fight in London. The CIA arrive, having rescued the rookies. Trench arrives. Everyone who's ever been in one of these movies and doesn't die arrives. Angela Bassett fights someone on top of an exploding cable car. Someone makes a fat gag and Hale and Moira both put him through the ground. Barney and his brother hit each other a lot. Then the demolition charges go off. The O2's coming down around their ears. Trench and the CIA help evacuate the building. Mallory waits at the door, watches as Barney and Joseph turn and run. The floor collapses and Joseph falls. Barney grabs him. His brother looks up and yells, "Why?" And Stallone does that one piece of acting he does a decade and says, "Because no one's expendable." I don't know what voice that was. It was the bulldog off Tom and Jerry. And then we see Lee hanging on to Barney. Mallory hanging on to Lee, and all the others human chaining out the door to get the big lumps of meat clear before it comes down, and we cut to black. We see Mallory fixing Barney's tie, clearly at a beach wedding. He smiles and thanks her for everything. She chuckles, replies, "Damn right." And then we realise she's giving him away. They walk down the aisle. The guest list filled out by literally everyone who hasn't been killed in these movies. The camera lingers until at the last second it pans up, and waiting on the altar is Lee fucking Christmas. Barney smiles, taking his lucky ring off. Knew I was saving this for a reason. Hands it to Lee. Everyone cheers. Everyone cries. There is absolutely kissing. There's not really a ceremony, but this is a franchise where Barney lands a plane in a uranium mine, and none of them are even dented. Just go with it. At the reception, Mr. and Mrs. Christmas are asked what their plans are. They announce that the Expendables are expanding into a worldwide organisation, and that each of the original team will be a bureau chief. The US office, run by Hale, will field Mallory's unit as its primary squad, along with the newbies. And as for them, they're going on honeymoon. If they can just work out which one gets to fly. The final camera pan is of an aging seaplane with "just married" shut into the side. It flies off into the sunset, and then we get 15 Expendables movies before Barney and Lee cameo, along with the entire Triple X cast, John Wick, Everly, and every version of Nikita in Fast and the Furious 10 in space.
Actually, it's going to be 9 in space. Yay!
Nate, I can never read my stuff aloud again. Ever. Seriously. That was so good. That was so freaking good. Thank you, dude.
This needs to be a regular thing. You need to have guests read your opening monologues from now on because it's amazing. So we have a couple people in the chat who missed Nate's introduction. Would you do a
Of course.
recap for us?
Our esteemed guest this week is the magnificent Nate Crowley, who is one of my favourite humans and one of my favourite authors. This is a man who has never written a book which is less than incredible. I am embracing the hyperbole because in this case it's true. Death and Life of Schneider Rack is the near impossible. It is something new with zombies. 100 video games that never existed but should is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the single most creative and hilarious books I have ever encountered. You will have heard, regulars on the stream, several of these as opening monologues. Nate is also... Are you the reviews editor at Rock Paper Shotgun? Or are you like a two-fisted review samurai, just beating up games anytime they put them in front of you?
I'm a sort of a reviews Ronin now. Yes, I stepped back from reviews editor because I didn't like the admin, but I still write loads of reviews. I basically do the same thing. I'm just a normal editor now.
Brilliant. Nate's work at Rock Paper Shotgun is honestly kind of extraordinary.
He wrote the Crusader Kings giant dating opening that we did last week.
The Crusader Kings giant dating Stone Age version of LinkedIn.
Tinder for Giants.
Tinder for Giants piece discussing how you can build narratives of your own inside a game like Crusader Kings 3, and also what happens when you try and build a colossal kingdom made entirely of giants, is hands down one of my favourite pieces of journalism this year. Everything he has written is fantastic. I will put links to all of it in the show notes. Start anywhere. You will be rewarded. And that brings us, oh so neatly, to this, which is out tomorrow. Nate, could you tell us a little bit about this, and we'll do a little reading from it as well.
Delighted to. So this is Notes from Small Planets. Sorry, my voice is a bit stifled. So this is my next book, which is out tomorrow from Harper Voyager, and it's a travel guide. Possibly not the most useful book to release in 2020, you'd think. But luckily, this is a travel guide you will be able to have just as much utility from now as you would in a year where travel was feasible. Because none of the locations detailed within are real. They are all worlds I've invented. And they are nevertheless exactingly described. There are recommendations for where to eat, where to stay, what not to do, words in local dialect. And yeah, the whole thing is also at the same time a deeply affectionate but venomous satire of many of the most popular genres in science fiction and fantasy. So it's a satire of travel guides, and it's a sort of a satire of the idea of genre, and it's ridiculous. I had a great time writing it.
I don't know whether you're allowed to have an author be their own pull quote, but deeply affectionate and also venomous satire is just too perfect to not use. So, two other things, and then we'll jump to the reading. Do you have a favourite world from this? Because I have a suspicion I know which one it is.
Favourite in terms of I'm happiest with or I would like to visit?
I think world you would like to visit.
I think Grandora was the barbarian world. It was interesting. I ended up, I think, coming to the realization that the barbarians, despite being extraordinarily violent, were probably the most morally reasonable people I'd sort of thought about in the whole thing. And I think so long as you're not, so long as you don't think you're the big man, I think barbarians would be quite reasonable company.
It's weird you should mention that, because we are happily chopping our way through legendary Disney cartoon gargoyles at the moment. And
which Alistair has never seen.
Which I've never
before.
previously seen.
So he didn't realize it's where all the Next Generation cast went on their coffee breaks.
Exactly. Literally, every episode is play spot the Next Gen cast member. But Goliath in that is absolutely what you say, in that he's kind of terrifying, but he's also very kind of, that is bad. I will hit the bad thing.
Yeah, Goliath does two things. He hits the bad things, or he waits for someone to show up. Those are his two modes.
He has two plays.
I always thought he was quite a nice fellow, actually. Yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, he's not bright. He could successfully be manipulated by an Oreo, but his heart is very much in the right place, I feel. And yeah, it speaks to your kind of, if you cross me, I will hit you with a tree trunk. If you don't cross me,
I will make you cocoa.
I will make you cocoa in the tree trunk. I will have set alight and tell you about a good snake I killed. That kind of thing. So there's an audiobook version of this as well, yes. If I remember, and there's a love. You actually do in this one of my favourite layout tricks, which is tell an extra level of story with the footnotes. And we were chatting about this earlier in the week, and you said that there are actually different actors in to do the footnotes and the main cast as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, it's the first audiobook of anything I've done, and I didn't know how they were going to pull it off because, yeah, as you say, like the whole thing's written by a complete arsehole called Nate Crowley. No, well, there's also a fictional arsehole called Floyd Watt, who is the sort of buffoon who's writing this guidebook as a way to try and get his faded celebrity back. And his editor is a woman called Eliza, who is constantly battling with him in footnotes, because the idea is the book was a disaster and was never got to publication, and so this is the half-finished, half-edited version of it that's been published. And they did a wonderful job with the audiobook. There's 3 actors, and they basically make it into a drama. It's wicked.
Fantastic. Well, let's do a bit of it. We're going to do the first couple of sections of Chapter 3, Spume.
Now, who's going to read?
Actually, I just need to reach across and get my copy.
Okay.
Oh, we're doing Spume.
We're doing Spume. Let's do Welcome to Spume, and let's also do Understanding Spume.
Now, who's going to read
Shall
the
I be
narrator,
Floyd?
and who's going to do the footnotes?
Yeah. Do you want to do Floyd, and I'll do Eliza, and as we get to the footnotes, we'll kind of crossfade and do it live.
That sounds good.
Brilliant.
Would you like to do the box outs as well?
Yeah, if that's all right.
Please do. Yes.
Okay. So, you want me to do the intro, or do you want to?
Please.
This is from Notes from Small Planets by Nate Crowley. Welcome to Spume. No destination has distilled the essence of high adventure quite like the nautical fantasy realm of Spume. With salt spray misting your face as you lean from the bowsprit of a galleon in full sail, it's impossible not to feel a freedom as unconstrained as the endless waves. And indeed, there's everything to play for here, just as long as you respect the pirate's code.
Why Spume? Well, sooner or later, in any jaunt through the worlds, you'll hit water. Once you hit water, there's every chance you'll hit spume. Because if you set sail from anywhere with the right sense of perfectly measured recklessness, these horizons will suck you in. Drive a boat like you've stolen it, or better yet, steal a boat, and you'll end up here.
Even if
the theft...
Oh, no worries. Even if the theft of a vessel is temporary and agreed with its owners in exchange for a reasonable donation, it works. I even heard of someone dodging the fare. Oh, sorry, that is Floyd still. Sorry, you go. Sorry, dude.
Even if the theft of a vessel is temporary and agreed with its owners in exchange for a reasonable donation, it works. I even heard of someone dodging the fare for a steamer on Chugholm and causing the whole shebang to end up on spume because they felt too excited about getting away with it. Anyway, nobody is sure why theft but wet is even a genre, let alone one so primal as to occupy the central space among the worlds. Nevertheless, it is what it is, and spume embodies it with breathtaking purity. An expanse of tropical archipelagos, inhabited exclusively by pirates, its deep, almost fastidious commitment to cliché has resulted in a destination that always hits the right notes. It can take some getting used to. The contradiction between the recklessly egalitarian ideals of the buccaneering lifestyle and the Byzantine regulations of the pirate's code, which keep it viable, can be jarring at first.
Sorry.
And I should know. On my first visit, I assumed an anything goes mentality and immediately shot a man in the leg for garnishing my drinking correctly at Hardtack Mulligan's Bar and Grill. Over the following month in a rat-clogged brig, while Eliza explained my misunderstanding to the Council of Free Captains, or CFC, I learned otherwise. I have to say, they were terribly reasonable about the whole thing in the end, freeing me in exchange for agreeing to certain terms. But stick with it long enough to learn the rules, and you'll discover a way of life that, within a number of sensible parameters at least, has no limits.
Why My Heart Belongs to Spume by Sid Tidy, ship's cook aboard the Gilded Gurnard. What convinced me to stay in Spume wasn't the tropical weather, nor the cold, no me hearty. It were the people. In my old job as a recruitment consultant, I was surrounded by complete bastards pretending to be reasonable people. Now, I'd be part of a crew of reasonable people who spend all day pretending to be complete bastards. Sure, it's not the easiest life, but every day brings surprises, and the shore leave be off the chain. Last week I went ashore for a few cold ones with the arties and ended up stealing a cannon off the Navy. Proper mental we be. Mad lads. One word of warning though, if you come here, accept that you may never go back. I still technically be on a stag weekend that started 6 years ago. I were going to go home, but Captain Beefshanks here needed a new cook, and I thought, why not? Not sure what happened to the rest of the lads now I comes to think of it. Mike be definitely a skeleton, he loves it, and I think Colin be a captain now. That's the thing about Spume, so long as you be a good pirate, you can be anything here. So what are you waiting for? Come aboard, shipmates!
Can I ask a question really quick?
Uh-huh.
Is steal a cannon from the Navy, is that a Hamilton reference?
Potentially. There's a lot of references. And I think I listened to a fair bit of Hamilton at the time, so yeah, odds are good.
Okay.
Spume offers a wealth of simple pleasures, from sea views and accordion-heavy portside ambience to endless supplies of rum and seafood. And for those wanting to delve deeper into weirdness, it delivers in big, pirate-sized spadefuls. There are sunken wrecks crusted with corals, city-sized leviathans, and skeletons you can have dinner with. If you can bear their company, they're really boring. So wherever you fancy a laid-back cruise through turquoise shallows, hunting treasure on specks of paradise, or braving storms and black powder on a sloop full of deceptively sane madmen, there's a pirate's life out there, waiting for you. And Alistair, would you like to hold the map to camera while I do the can't miss experiences? Can't miss experiences. 1. Battle a Kraken. We all remember that moment of childhood disappointment when we realised the sea monsters drawn on old maps were just tall stories. Well, prepare to leave all that disappointment behind in Spume. The monsters here are real. The seven seas teem with leviathans, of which the famous Kraken are the undisputed showstoppers. A lengthy dispute over maritime stewardship policy between skeleton pirates and normal pirates has made kraken hunting more of a hot-button topic in recent years. They had to politicise it, didn't they? But there's still no shortage of so-called squidbuster fleets heading out from the major ports, and they're always looking for fresh deckhands. 2. Fight in a boarding action. We've all had the daydream, swinging from a rope with a flintlock in your hand and a cutlass between your teeth, hollering the naughtiest words you know as you prepare to cause havoc on the enemy's deck. On the seas of spume, this isn't a daydream, it's a fairly ordinary start to the week. Ship-to-ship combat is almost oppressively frequent along the major trade routes, and it's still a thrill to behold, even with the strict conduct for nautical confrontations set out by the Pirates' Code. Controversially, some captains are now only allowing their crews to use foam cutlasses when there are tourists aboard, with rumours that this will soon be mandated by the Council of Free Captains, or CFC. Critics are calling this a classic case of Pirates' Code gone mad, but I, for one, can see the sense in it. 3. Find buried treasure. Until recently, searching for treasure among Spume's island chains was a fruitless business, as all the good stuff had been dug up. Thanks to canny amendments to the Pirates' Code by Captain Bartholomew Threelegs, however, the booty game is back in business. Each year, that sounds very rude, doesn't it? Each year, captains are mandated to bury between 12 and 40% of their loot, and then leave a map in a bizarre place for their rivals to find. Best one I saw was by Captain Liz Blacktooth, who tattooed the map to her loot on the arse of her longtime rival's pet ape. They had the map right under their noses for years, but never saw it until the ape got the shits and they had to shave its rear end, revealing a dotted line and an X marking the spot. If you're in search of treasure, why not try organising a tour with one of the following many certified guide captains listed in the Port Remittance Visitor Directory. 4. Go out on the lash. Spume's land-to-sea ratio means the average pirate lives at sea for 9/10 of the year, and living on a boat can be as claustrophobic as it is stressful. As such, when a ship stops in port and the crew get a chance to stretch their peg legs, things get hectic. The world's astonishing variety of rums, from molasses-heavy headache juice to ice-clear spirits fit for royalty, are consumed by the gallon, and the accordions ring out in cacophonic chorus. A night of shore leave on Spume is either impossible to forget or impossible to remember, but never anything in between. Region by region. Just 4% of Spume's surface is dry land, spread across the ocean like raisins scattered by a miserly baker. Between these specks of sand and rainforest is water, hundreds of millions of square miles of it, divided up into the 7 seas. Eagle-eyed travellers will note there are in fact only 5 seas, but it's just not polite to point that out to pirates, who are adamant about there being 7. 1. The Yohos. This idyllic archipelago, with its white sand beaches untroubled by hurricanes or raids, is where pirates go to relax, retire and raise families. The Pirate Code forbids all but the most light-hearted violence here, and limits cursing to mild blasphemy, plus meaningless exclamations like "son of a Dutchman" and "hornswoggle me nutmegs." There's still some rough and tumble, the kids have to learn their trade somehow, but all in all it's a cheerful place suitable for travellers who like their rum watered down to child strength. Don't underestimate these Spume kids though, the little bastards can put it away. I got in a drinking contest with a 9-year-old and the little git utterly bladdered me. And those who prefer to remember holidays with fridge magnets rather than scar tissue. 2. Doldrum. In a realm where sail power is universal, Doldrum, that great patch of breezeless ocean at the centre of the map, is a place considered universally worthless. It sits there like a big patch of sick nobody wants to clear up, caked over with groomer scum and dotted with the bleached, creaking hulks of calmed ships. Nevertheless, from the albatrosses who circle above to the slimy things that gather below the water to breed, it's a top-tier destination for nature fans. I must admit I hadn't heard much about Doldrum until someone told me all about it on my way to a wedding. I have to say he was an odd bloke, but he really sold it. 3. The Storm Racks. In contrast to the Yohos, the Storm Racks are Spume on hard mode. These islands jut from the sea like rotten teeth, swathed in thorny jungle and brooding beneath the smoke of countless volcanoes, Their shores are encrusted with ramshackle port towns, where captains take their crews to carouse, gamble, and fight in the brief gaps between roaming the seas. While the Pirates Code still applies here, it's definitely an adventure destination where daylight robbery is considered a mandatory pursuit, and one grog too many can mean waking up naked under indentured servitude to a glowering brute. And not in the good way either. It may sound like the stuff of cheap romance novels, but more often than not it involves a vast amount of deck maintenance and very little in the way of teaching twinkly-eyed ruffians the ways of love.
Talking like a pirate. Pirates make talking the salt-stained patter of the high seas look easy, but remember, they've had a lifetime of practice. It's harder than it looks. Case in point, "Shiver me timbers" can be either an exclamation of mild surprise or a demand for vigorous manual stimulation, depending on the company you're keeping. For newcomers, it's best to start with the odd contemplative "arr" if you really must get involved, before throwing in the odd "Jim lad" or "matey." Intermediate learners may choose to start completely mangling all use of the verb "to be," while experts can begin throwing whole phrases into conversation, such as these classics selected from the Landlubber's Lexicon, a free pamphlet issued to tourists by the Council of Free Captains. "Splice yon gurnards me Jimmy liver, for I'll glop a sack of neckplate avast ye." Do you want to go for a drink?
Do you want to go for a drink?
There we go.
There we are. "By yonder wounds of Neptune, I'll be gut slit afore I blither ye to old hempen Jack."
You can trust me.
"Salt tack, billy cloths, and cleave me grunions, for to see wily John Tar on the Sea Dad's watch."
Even the CFC don't know what the fuck that means. 4. Yonder. The Sea of Yonder and the windswept islands scattered across it are the domain of the skeleton pirates. Of course, under the terms of the code, nowhere on Spume is technically anyone's domain, but you get the picture. Walking, talking cadavers who have very literal trouble holding their drink. Thanks to their indifference to oxygen, the bonies... Eliza says I can't use that word as it is apparently disrespectful. I don't care. It's what everyone else calls them. They're skeletons. It's authentic. Live as much beneath the waves as on them, and conduct breathtaking aquatic tours from their capital and the drowned city of Thalassinor. Just don't be fooled by their bony grins. Your average skeleton pirate is obsessively political, extremely sincere, and about as gifted with humour as they are with skincare techniques. I guess you could say they weren't very humorous. 5. Map's Edge. The colossal viridian expanse of Map's Edge dwarfs the other seas, encircling them like the fist of an angry blue giant. But despite its immensity, it's astonishing to note that this sea contains almost nothing. No islands more interesting than little hillocks of sand and gull shit, and certainly no settlements. Apart from the odd lost captain, nobody spends any time in Map's Edge. It's barely worth mentioning. So, you know I mentioned the CFC freeing me after the incident at Mulligan's. Well, their clemency was on the condition that I give them full approval over the copy in this guidebook. So I had to be very careful about what I included. However, these footnotes went in after they made their edits, so let me say this clearly: Map's Edge isn't empty, not by a long chalk. If you listen to enough rum chat amongst the old salts of the storm-racked taverns, you'll hear the same. There's danger out there, real danger, the kind that comes at the tip of a rusty machete and which laughs at rotten-toothed malice of the Pirates' Code. I've seen it, I'll never forget it.
2. Understanding Spume. A brief history. You want me to do this bit, or you...
Please.
Yeah. The true history of Spume is hard to piece together, since it's not written down. Paper and parchment are hard to come by in this watery place, and what little exists is usually reserved for making treasure maps. As such, the pirates recount their history entirely through sea shanties, in which the details are almost entirely drowned out by repetitive refrains about heaving ho and lifting jugs of grog. After listening to thousands of hours of this nonsense, earthly historians have collected this sequence of best guesses as to the eras of Spume's past.
Do you guys want to alternate these?
Yeah, you want to go?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
1. The pre-piratical era. Spume is occupied by a thriving maritime empire, which grows rich through harvesting kraken on an industrial scale. But the strain of maintaining order over many distant islands takes its toll. Sailors turn rogue, congregating in hidden ports and plundering trade at their leisure. These are the first pirates, and before long they begin to outnumber the Empire's navies.
2. The Curse. Ruined cities, perhaps relics of a drowned civilization, are discovered on the seafloor, and a vast quantity of gold is found within. It turns out to be haunted.
Floyd, what does this mean? It sounds an awful lot like bullshit to cover up something dreadful. Eliza.
Those who take it are stricken by an awful curse. They become animated skeletons, immortal and unable to satiate their hunger or thirst. The social disruption caused by the sudden influx of miserable skeletons is the last straw for the Empire. Mass mutinies spread, all government collapses, and soon only pirates, and skeleton pirates, remain.
3. The Golden Age of Piracy. For generations, true anarchy reigns as pirates rob other pirates in a global feeding frenzy. It's so action-packed, nobody bothers to write anything down at all.
4. The Silver Age of Piracy. The Golden Age proves not to be sustainable. With piracy so lucrative, fewer and fewer people bother to engage in building ships, refining gunpowder, or farming food. Scurvy becomes a crippling pandemic, and timber becomes almost as valuable as gold itself.
5. The Bronze Age of Piracy. After a drawn-out nadir of economic auto-cannibalism, civilization on spume flatlines. Ships become vanishingly rare, most pirates sail on sprawling rafts constructed from detritus and fight with spears and clubs rather than cannons and flintlocks. Starvation and disease are rife, and some crews become entirely feral, drifting the seas like swarms of flotsam-born rats. Do you want to do the box sound?
I will. Thank you. Paranthropus pirates. Back in the pre-piratical era, pirates were declared hostes humanae generis, enemies of all humanity by the empire they preyed upon. Pirates thought this was quite cool, and adopted the descriptor themselves. But what sense did it make in the golden age of piracy when human civilization had been entirely replaced by pirates? To the pirates it was simple. If they had been declared enemies of humanity before, surely they had become non-human by definition. And with humanity now functionally extinct, since everyone had become a pirate, buccaneering anthropologist Professor Andronicus Skinner named pirates a new species, Paranthropus pirates, in a taxonomic ruling that no biologist has yet dared to challenge.
6. The Council of Free Captains. Realising that life on spume is on the edge of a precipice, the last reasonable mariners form the Council of Free Captains, or the CFC, and declare a ceasefire across the 7 seas. They hold a summit with the captains of the skeleton pirates, who have become fierce isolationists, and agree a set of ground rules for the conduction of piracy. The Pirates' Code. Under the code, crews must split their time between thievery and the meaningful creation of resources, and observe strict guidelines as to which circumstances are suitable for behaving with lawless abandon.
And now, the true history of the Pirate Code. Do you want to do this?
Yes. Nate,
May I?
Please. Oh, please.
The true history of the Pirates' Code, lines 1 to 8 out of 534,120. Oh, I'll tell you the tale of the birth of the code. Heave-ho, heave-ho. The good word that governs the Barnacle Road. Drink up, my boys, drink up. 'Twas old Captain Dolan who first wrote it up. Raised the capstan, told us how much to brew and how much to sup. Oh, anchor.
I think a moment's applause is very much called for.
I'm sure that'll be clipped and we'll send you the
Yes,
link.
yes.
Spume today. After a marathon recovery, Spume is currently in what the CFC calls the Platinum Age of piracy. The delicate sustainability policy enshrined in the code has been honoured, and while resource scarcity is still a concern, the increasingly efficient and responsible nature of kraken hunting and the development of an undersea salvage industry by the skeleton pirates are making life more comfortable all the time. Now, with the advent of tourism, fresh gold, always the most treasured resource in a world of pirates, is finally entering the economy. And while there was an initial period of awkwardness while the CFC figured out the rules for robbing visitors, these have now been formalised and are no longer the cause of any diplomatic crises, with the Seven Seas returning a greater bounty every year and the trustworthy hooked hand of the CFC at society's moral tiller. Now is the perfect time to visit Spume. This line was admittedly inserted into my copy by the CFC, but I really didn't like that prison, so I let it stand. Needs must when the devil drives no one.
Daylight robbery. Building a utopia from the gristle-strewn mayhem of a society founded entirely on violent crime is no mean feat, but the Pirates Code proves it can be done. Just don't make the mistake of thinking the crime has stopped. It's just been rationalised. So while you'll definitely be robbed during your time on Spume, you can avoid a lot of pain by knowing how it works. 1. Always carry 2 coin bags, one obvious and ostentatious, containing exactly 17% of your monthly salary, and one auxiliary, containing the rest of your cash, as well as exemption form 23R, available from the CFC. Pirates will take care to only rob the former. When travelling on certain ships or staying in certain ports in the storm racks, more senior pirates may rob from your auxiliary coin bag, citing counter exemption 499.
I'm starting to love this. There's paperwork.
If this occurs, don't panic. Just submit a reimbursement claim to the Department of Buccaneering on Remittance Island using Form 213B. You should receive at least 80% of what was robbed within 28 days.
Climate and terrain. If you've been paying attention so far, you'll probably have got the picture. There's a lot of sea on Spume. In fact, there's not much else. I mean, it's all basically the same, isn't it? Just a load of wet water. Eliza insisted I do a section on climate and terrain anyway, but I don't think it's necessary. It's a bloody pirate world. If you're reading this in the hope I'll suddenly reveal a massive desert, you'll be sorely disappointed. Of course, I say that, but according to the primer Eliza gave me, there is in fact such thing as a marine desert. Well, I reckon that's bollocks. There's no cactuses, not a desert. End of story. As for climate, Spume is especially maddening. The bright white sun moves in different directions on different days, and there are no less than 6 possible equators, each of which migrates over time. The good news is that because you're technically never more than 23 degrees north or south of an equator, you're always in the tropics. On the other hand, it makes the weather insane. Only the most scholarly pirates even pretend to comprehend Spumious meteorology, and climatic maps tend to look as if a child has been given a bag of military-grade crank and told to draw a ball of string. As a tourist, however, all you need to know is which areas tend to be calm and which are stormy. Let the pirates figure out the rest.
Ye Old Forestry Commission. You wouldn't think there'd be much need for forestry management in Spume, but you'd be wrong. Mangrove swamps spread for miles around many of the larger islands, while lush rainforest tends to spring up on any flat ground past the tide line, and sheer demand for shipbuilding timber means it all has to be carefully stewarded. Still, the real work of the CFC's Forestry Commission is out at sea. A whole fleet of ships patrol Spume's smallest islands, trimming back all foliage until only a single, iconic palm tree remains. It's this attention to detail that makes Spume as magical as it is. We found my favourite bit of the book, just so you know. It's that, right there.
That was my favourite gag in the whole thing.
It's so good.
Not even kidding. I'm so happy with that. Wildlife. The odds are, if you can imagine a ridiculous form of marine life, it probably exists on Spume. The pirate biologist Tobias H. Beastcounter once tried to compile a full bestiary, but died at the age of 93, having got halfway through the section on crabs. These volumes alone took up half the hold of his ship. So rather than attempt to summarise Spume's frankly bewildering biodiversity, it's better to focus on some of the more charismatic, dangerous, or culturally important species. The palmback, Hyperchelonus pseudoinsularis, is a turtle-like colossus measuring 2 miles or more fully grown, which spends most of its time basking at the surface. They are infamous for looking and behaving exactly like islands, until they submerge. As a result, palmbacks are one great reason not to go island hopping without an experienced guide. Sea serpents, Anguis megamaritimus, are aquatic snakes, and are common as muck on Spume, with the smaller species commonly spitted and grilled as street food. I have fond memories of the first time I tried what the pirates refer to as the Savaloys of the sea. If you can get past the fact that you've got to prise the fangs off first, they are great eating. The larger kinds, however, can grow to phenomenal sizes and can crack the keel of any boat that runs into them in full sail. They're not dangerous to humans, although it can be faintly stomach-churning watching one swallow a whale whole. With more than 10,000 kinds of shark, Elasma branchiortus, spume is a paradise for fans of the bitey lads. From the almost cuddly, faintly pathetic custard sharks, Selachomorphus tragicus of doldrum, to the 60-foot greater whites, Carcharodon gigalodon, that ply the deep channels south of the storm racks, there truly is a shark for every occasion. What's more, they are adored. Many captains will encourage them to follow their ships at sea, becoming familiar to the point that they'll take meat from the sharp end of a hooked hand. Admittedly, this practice is also the reason why many pirates have hooks for hands in the first place. Without a doubt, though, the most emblematic denizen of the depths is the kraken, Pseudarchiteuthis imperator. Much has been written about these vast creatures, but it all boils down to the fact that they're really, really big squid. Well, according to the primer Eliza has forced me to read, they are in fact pseudo-architeuthomorphic parasooids, presenting features common to both bryozoans and siphonophores, but with astonishing emergent complexity. However, since I have no idea what the hell that means, let's just agree on squid. That's impressive enough on its own, but even more remarkable is their sheer economic utility. The internal structure of a kraken is maintained by bone-like structures with a composition almost identical to wood, while their excrement contains a petrochemical blend indistinguishable from tar. Their mouthparts produce a fibre that can be spun into sturdy rope, while glands in their gut produce all the necessary ingredients for gunpowder. All in all, they contain everything you need to build a pirate ship, and they taste great too, which is why so many pirates ply their trade hunting them. Hilariously, aforementioned primer reckons the kraken aren't natural at all. It says if you were going to engineer an organism in a hurry to facilitate the survival of civilization after a catastrophic rise in sea level, you could do little better than the kraken. Come on though, seriously? It's meant to be a textbook, not science fiction.
I want a kraken ship.
Peter, perhaps the biggest source of acrimony between pirates and their undead cousins surrounds the issue of the kraken. While the pirates argue that hunting the beasts forms a vital part of both their economy and their culture, the skeletons are insistent that the only time a kraken should be fought is when a belligerent specimen, usually a large female in breeding condition, attacks a ship. And even then, many bony
Please stop that.
captains will refuse. To this end, they have formed an organisation known as PETA, Pirates for the Ethical Treatment of Architeuthomorphs.
Slogan, release the krakens.
Which lobby? I'm back. Which lobbies for stricter harvesting laws and pickets hunts and swarms with swarms of smaller boats?
People. Pirates. Paranthropus parates culture is incredibly cosmopolitan. It favours no ethnicity, gender or sexual preference, and encompasses a huge range of religious beliefs. This egalitarian approach to identity makes it all the more bizarre that it's mandatory for everyone to at least attempt an utterly ludicrous accent. But that's the secret to spumish personal freedom. You can be anyone you like, so long as you're a pirate, first and foremost. Skeleton pirates. The skeleton pirates, technically Paranthropus parates skeletos, are a strange bunch. The CFC certainly consider them fellow pirates, since they pursue an existence based on ritualized maritime theft. Nevertheless, the longevity and melancholy inflicted on them by the curse has made them rather more pious. The political schism between skeletal and non-skeletal pirates is rooted in fundamental disagreements over the ontological complexities of piracy, which have long become far too nuanced and labyrinthine for outsiders to follow. In short, the bonies
Floyd.
feel the CFC has lost sight of the values of sustainability on which it was founded. It's fair enough, I suppose, since they'll be roaming the seven seas for centuries to come. Rather than squander limited timber reserves by building new ships, for example, they tend to salvage old ones, or create serviceable vessels from the carcasses of sea monsters that have died of natural causes. Be wary when booking tours aboard such craft, as skeleton pirates have no sense of smell. For the most part, the skeletons prosecute their moral conflict through activism, stunts, and passive-aggressive pranks. Frequently, pirates will come across bogus treasure maps left by the skeletons, which will lead them halfway across the sea only to find a chest containing a snarky political slogan signed with the skeleton symbol. The skeleton symbol is a boneless face over two crossed floppy arms. It's understood that this was a sort of see how you like it gesture in response to the pirates' refusal to give up the skull and crossbones as their own symbol. And believe me, you have not seen rage till you've seen a woman who's braved a 10,000-mile quest only to find a scrap of parchment reading, "It turneth out ye real treasure with ye friends ye made along the way." The humans. There are absolutely, definitely, 100% no humans on Spew. Everyone is a pirate. To reiterate, there are no humans at all, and it's certainly not worth going looking for them. The official position of the CFC is that there is no organised non-pirate culture in the whole world. But then that's exactly the impression they would want to give to prospective tourists, isn't it? And while I'm not going to flat out say there are hundreds of thousands of hostile humans living in the expanse of Map's Edge, which is not nearly so empty as the CFC insists, I am trusting you, dear reader, to put two and two together here.
And that is the best possible place we can leave this so people immediately go and buy your book. My God, this has been fun. Thank you so much, dude.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. I'm sorry. That felt like it went on for 30 years, and I got really into it. I'm so sorry.
You have nothing to apologise for.
Absolutely love it. Well, let's see. Several people have already said they've pre-ordered the book, so it's already been successful.
Yep.
Sales.
And just the epic setup for I guess the real treasure was the friends we made along the way joke. I've never seen so many people go, "Oh!" in text before, which I'm guessing is a good thing. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on twitter.com as @FrogCroakley, FrogCroakley. You can find me on rockpapershotgun.com, or my own site, which actually don't because it's updated so rarely this book isn't even mentioned on it. I write for Black Library, I write for Harper Voyager with this book, I've written for Rebellion, and just come say hello on Twitter, basically. Be nice to chat.
Nate is one of the most profoundly nice human beings I have ever met, and just your Twitter feed alone, I think we were on a train when that fast food joint attempted to school you, and I could actually hear you say, all right, welcome to burger school. And everything that followed from that was just a thing of beauty. Thank you so much for coming on, dude. Seriously, that was amazing.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, everyone. I'm a big fan of this show, and it's lovely to feature in it personally tonight. So.
Brilliant.
Our first ever guest. Hooray!
And the best guest. Set the bar super high. Fantastic.
Best one yet.
Best one yet.
Why don't
Take a break?
Yeah, we're going to take a little 5-minute break, everybody. So this is a great time to check your drinks, check if there's any pets you need to feed or medications you need to attend to. And we'll be back in about 5 with Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking.
Yep.